Blog Talk Radio.
Hey, Greg here, founder of www.wrestling-divas.webs.com, your source for highlighting the most beautiful and deadly entertainers in the professional wrestling industry. Thanks to everyone for tuning in for another exclusive interview on the behalf of my website. Today, I have a very special guest joining me. She is a professional wrestler, model, actress, and artist. She is perhaps best known for her career within the professional wrestling industry, competing under the ring name Sosay. In this industry, she is a former Win City Pro Wrestling Ladies Champion and spent a majority of her career in Ohio Valley Wrestling, which is a former developmental training center for the WWE, where she worked with such past and present WWE stars as Alicia Fox, Maria, and Kenny Dykstra. She has recently gone into another field and revamped her love for fine art. So I would like to welcome my next special guest, Jennifer Kaiser. Hi, Jen. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for joining me today.
Well, that was a nice interview or introduction there.
Thanks. I try my best. I really do.
Sounded good to me. Am I a legend yet?
So
yes.
You left wrestling as a full-time career in 2007, and you recently went back to your first love, which was art at the time, and you received a degree in studio arts before you even stepped into a wrestling ring. So
right.
What inspired you to get involved with art and fine art, studio arts, and why go back to that love right now?
Okay. Actually, I was like a downhill skier. I did a lot of competitions, and I moved to Colorado. This is and I also had like athletic background as a dancer, and I couldn't really find that fit that was like art meets athleticism, and because I liked to perform so much, but I also liked drawing and that type of concentration or meditation where you can work and write and get results from every day and going back to it's more individual. I just couldn't find that kind of art form until I got to Chicago, and I started back in school, and I was working in a restaurant, and I met someone who happened to be a wrestler who had a background in music, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know about wrestling, that you had to go to school for that, and how involved it was until I started talking to him. And I just kind of started going to more shows in Chicago for like a year while I was studying in studio art and everything. And I just really liked it. I felt like I clicked with it. I liked the personalities and the over-the-top characters. I think that's what I was drawn to it, Can you hear me?
Yep.
Are you there? Okay.
Totally.
Okay.
So
I'm kind of flying there. And so I don't know, there's something that just really clicked with me. Like the personalities of wrestlers are very unique, I think, and their sense of humor, and just there was just something about it that I went to the shows and I was just like looking in the audience. I'm like, you can say whatever you want to people. I'm like, well, not exactly. I was like, well, so you can, I was like, is that guy your friend? Or, just like a little, I like the complexity of, just the rivals and the feuds and who are these people and all that. It just was very interesting to me. So that's how I got into it. And my brothers watched it all the time when I was little. So, I was always watching it, but I was watching like Miss Elizabeth and these type of things. But I wasn't really, I would watch it. They'd make me watch it, but I wasn't, into it like I was when I got back in Chicago. Yes.
So you informed me prior to this interview that you like political art and the politics behind art in general. And
right.
You said that you consider professional wrestling to be a political form of art, and not that I necessarily disagree with that statement, but why do you believe that?
The way that I was exposed to it in a traditional art form manner, meaning you learn how the heel and the babyface interact is good versus evil, and what the motivations are in the characters and the drives and why people fight and what makes you want to see people fight, sort of gives you a type of power over, like, I don't know how to say this without being, I'm not trying to be, but like a power over a massive amount of people that you can draw into something like that. And what I like about wrestling is that it is something that the art form occurs when the expression is there, but nobody's getting hurt in the process. Does that make sense?
Yes, totally. I totally get what you're saying.
You take out that other element. I don't like that. That's where real art occurs, when you can get over without having to resort to like a lower level of like human nature. So I just think that's why also people like it too, because they want to live like vicariously through those characters, and they also want to believe that their character, when it, if you're really like a bad heel, they're not going to really, they aren't really being who, you know what I mean? They're not really beating the guy up in wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Not like that.
Yeah.
Like you're making it look convincing enough, but believable at the same time, and that's the art form of wrestling. You're not hurting.
So if we looked at wrestling like an art form, you can create art, but you can never duplicate it. So when you're in a match and you're trying to engage the crowd, how do you make every match really special? Because wrestling's an art form, and you can never make a piece of art, if you would, exactly the same.
No, but you can't. There are certain elements of it that have a structure, like in matches, they have structure. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. They have stories have a structural meaning. Like you learn that. Like that's what you learned in Ohio Valley Wrestling, like that old school way of being what is taught. And then there's an element of play where you can improv. That when you learn, it's really complex how to say to someone if you haven't experienced it. But it's like a jazz musician. They can read music, and then they can do improv where they play off the other musician. So it's sort of like you learn your basics and you learn how to apply them, but there is like a shine where the baby face gets over, and there's something that, like a heat spot where the heel has to cheat or do something. A heel in wrestling, I don't know, who's listening. A heel in wrestling is usually the bad guy that gets over by cheating or doing something illegal, and you can do these things and like utilize the ref in these type of situations, or the crowd, or distract the other wrestler, or anything that you can think of that a bad guy would do. You can take that and start using that element, and the babyface has to learn how to get over without cheating, and to be strong to the audience and have the audience have their back, because it's really, if you talked about this before, I don't know, but they always have said that it's very difficult to be a true babyface in wrestling, and talk to Shawn Michaels if you want to know more about it, because he has it all figured out, but what I hear. But it's very, it's like a very frustrating experience to be like a baby face. It's not, when you first begin in wrestling, it's like the easiest thing, but as you advance, it can become more difficult. That's what I found. You have to go back and forth. You have to know, you have to be in that mode of babyface mode and your heel mode, but you have to know your character well enough to know why you would turn babyface or why you would be heel and where you are in your career as a wrestler. And you also have to understand that separation of the self from the wrestler.
So speaking of your wrestling character down in Ohio Valley Wrestling, which again was a former developmental training center for the WWE, you debuted there under the name Desiree, but quickly changed to Sosay. So how did the name Sosay come to life, and what was your inspiration behind a name like that?
Well, there was a movie called The Usual Suspects, starring Kevin Spacey. The character's name was Kaiser Sosay, and my last name just happened to be Kaiser. While I was in college, I suppose my friends in college thought that I just seemed very unassuming, sort of like the character in this movie, and not what I appeared to be. And they never knew. They didn't want to call me my name Jenny or Jennifer. They just didn't. They wanted to call me something else because everybody had a nickname. And somebody was just sitting there, and they're like, Kaiser. Like, oh, have you seen that movie? Sosay. Oh my gosh, that's who you are. That's who you are. And from that moment on, I never saw the movie or anything. That was my name. And they seriously forgot my name, Jenny. That was it. The Kaiser or was Sosay. I mean, it just went on for years. And that person that actually came up with this, I mean, it was pretty funny. Like, it was going all over the place. This is name. She couldncouldn't call in tonight, but because she was hoping she could. When I got into wrestling, I said that to the booker, and they said, we can't call you Kaiser Sosay because that's too much like that character, and it doesn't make sense, but we could call you, it could be Sosay, and, we'll just change the spelling to have it more feminine, so it was Sosay. And that's just sort of where that went. And I never changed it. I thought that was good enough, and I just kept it. So, if you're a movie fan or you like that movie, then you kind of understand it. If you're not, then either way, it seemed to work out. So,
down in OVW, there were people who were under contract with the WWE, and there were people who weren't. And you weren't under contract with the WWE during your time there. So, unfortunately, the people who weren't under contract with the WWE at the time were a bit overshadowed by the people who were. So, what was the whole backstage
what was
atmosphere like?
Right. What was it? Sort of. What do you call it? It's like a situation where you get into with, like, let's say, union workers versus non-union workers. So you have these guys in full-time positions, and then you got somebody that hires manpower, and they come in, and they're doing their job, and they think, why is this person here? I get more benefits, or you don't get those, and I get this, and you don't get that. So it becomes like, it does become like that. When I look back at it, I know that I think I was in the best situation because it was, I already established myself, and I wasn't at a level where, how do you say this, like, you can advance so much in Ohio Valley, depending on how much work how many hours you can get in that ring and take amateur class and all these other classes and wrestle every day if you want to for 8 hours. And that's what it was like at first. It was like, and you don't experience that when you're on the road. So people that are under contract can be at a disadvantage because they're not getting that daily training. And then the people, so you got like kind of a mix going on, and you got a lot of competition in a way where the non-contract are not as complacency hasn't set in for them because they want it. They're still eager to have that, and they're going to go after it. So you could see them advance more. So there's all kinds of like elements going on. As far as there's other things too, I believe. I don't know if they're well, I don't know if they're. We should do. I guess that there was a lot of whatever. There's a lot of testing going on for people that let's say this. You got contract. They have to meet certain requirements, testing for hepatitis or this or these type of things. Non-contract, they aren't required to test for this. So why would a contract talent be in the ring with somebody they don't know hasn't been tested for these type of viruses that can be contagious? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely seems like with the contract talent, they put an extra precaution safety measure and then they don't
but at the same
really
time,
level it out.
Yeah, and at the same time, it's not really a safety measurement for them because they're in a different situation than a non-contract. So their safety isn't at, it's still at risk. So as as a contract talent, I don't know what I can tell you that was something that I do know about, but I don't know who was required to have matches with who or wasn't. I do know that I think they had to do things. You had to show up for practice, and you had to go to the shows, or else you would get fined. I don't know about these other type of situations because everybody's contract was probably differently written, so I couldn't say for sure, and I didn't really ask. I just knew that I could be and train there when I wanted to, and I had worked my way into TV time. And so if they have somebody that has a TV experience, they're going to use them to help their people that don't have that experience because they're not going to get it anywhere else. That's what they're there for. So I can't, like I said, I can't say for sure because I don't know what the contracts look like. I don't know what was in them. But there were a lot of those type of things. So there's disadvantage for contract and non-contract, but different types of disadvantages. And there are things you have to do, like you have to get over a contract talent so they can get called up to make them look good and all these type of situations. And you got a lot of people at different levels. You know, you got contract talent that's been wrestling for 15 years that has a name, and then you have contract talent that may have had a reputation in a different type of athletic sport who has a name for themselves somewhere else, and they're there to learn how to do that type of business. So you got a lot of situations going on.
Before I get to our caller who's been patiently waiting on the line for about 7 minutes.
Okay.
If knowing all these, let's call them unknowable factors, quote unquote, about when you're going to be called up to the WWE roster, how long you're going to go on the road for, how your character is going to be used, and you don't have any control over your character in the WWE. My question is, would you accept a contract from them now? Like if they called you up and just were interested in signing you, would you accept their offer?
Well, if they called, contracts are something that I have to visually see and what it says on it. Like I was saying before, I don't know what these contracts. I don't know. I never saw my own. I never really saw anybody else's, and I hear they're all different. So yeah, I would definitely say I would love to see the contract, and I'll get back with you. If there were certain things that I couldn't do or give the time to do, then I don't know if at this point I would be available for that. But it's definitely an opportunity I wouldn't want to pass up, and it wasn't. And that was the main reason that you get this experience in OVW to work for a major wrestling federation or company such as the WWE. So it wouldn't be something I would throw. I wouldn't say no, not but I would love to see what they have to offer and what what it would what I would have to do now to change myself or to change the situation, you know. So
definitely. Well, I do like callers during my program, so I'm going to get to my caller. Area code 506, first three numbers of the number calling in is 328. You are now live on the air with myself and Jennifer Kaiser, a.k.a. Sosay. Hi.
Hey guys, I'm a big fan of your work. Were you ever hostile or jealous of people in OVW that would go into World Wrestling Entertainment?
What was that?
Were you ever was there ever any hostility between you and the other divas?
Oh, hostility. Okay. There's always a tension there. I don't know if you'd call it hostility or it's just everybody wants to be in the same place at one time. So whatever you want to call that, I guess that's just what it is that you're going after.
Right on. And what's the worst interview you had when you were there?
I couldn't hear it. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear anything you're saying. What did you ask?
The worst injury you had when you were there.
Oh, the worst injury I had? I had a couple of concussions. Probably more than I know about because I was doing this daily for 4 or 5 years, and so I had some concussions, and I had I think my nose was broken, but those things you can't, that's about all I can say. Oh, and a bad knee injury. So that was about it.
Right on. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for calling in.
Can you hear me?
So, before we get to how fans can contact you, most fans are wondering what you're up to now. Well, obviously it's art, but you told me that you're definitely not leaving the wrestling industry forever because they always say that once you enter this industry, you never leave it. So,
no.
So what are you generally doing now outside of the aforementioned art that got up in the first few minutes of the conversation?
I am, every day I'm working on my art for as much time as I put into wrestling, and that's something I can tell you that taught me some serious discipline. If you're going to do this for 8 hours a day or be around it and learn about it, then I sort of started putting that back into my artwork. So I've been working on that and going to more classes or places where I can utilize live models and drawing from life. I'd like to draw more models that have a celebrity status that I can work with on that sort of thing, and I think that would be a really great way to gain exposure for the model and for the artist and all. I think it would be a great way to transfer, wrestling into a situation where, wrestlers are able to get more exposure or to make a little more money. Because I think for the same, with art form or this type of art, fine art, it's an investment with art, so the original is worth a lot. So even as a wrestler, or somebody that has some type of celebrity status, if I was to draw them, they can make money on what was printed or sold with them and the original, which is kept or sold or whoever bought it. Do you know what I mean? So it kind of works out really good for everybody. And the fans, if they wanted to buy a print, it's up to me if we can make a limited edition print of that piece if it really sold well, if I was to draw anybody. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
If they let me.
Well,
the model release.
Well, I'm sure they will if you just keep at it.
Oh, thank you.
So, one question that I really quickly want to ask, and this is a one-word answer, so don't worry, we'll still have time to plug in and contact you.
Okay.
If you could sum up your experience with professional wrestling in just one word, what would that one word be?
Life. I'd just say that. That's all I have to say. Just life.
Well, how can fans stay in contact with you and check out more of your artwork and keep up to date with what you're doing if you so happen to go back into wrestling again? I know that you have a Facebook page, so if you'd like to plug that in, now's the chance.
Sure. I do have a Facebook, and I have, if I can remember correctly, some original Sosay. I think if you are just to search for Sosay, it can be found there. It's original Sosay. I think that's just the address. And I also have a website. It's www.sosayart.com. That it's in the process of being developed, but you can contact me through that. And MySpace is still active, and so I'm able to receive messages there. Also, if you were able to send any type of fan mail to Ohio Valley Wrestling at the Davis Arena, and off the top of my head, I can't remember that address, but I'm able to still receive that mail at that address. And I guess through I mean that's about it for now. I did have a couple other websites. They're not really active right now, so that would be how you would contact me.
Well, great. Sorry to rush this along, but we are running out of time.
Sure.
Thank you again so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for this opportunity.